Hi there guys, Nassim Ali here, and today I just wanted to talk about the reception of Arrow Season 4 and a recent interview Stephen Amell did with Larry King Now about the general reception and nastiness, as he described it, towards Arrow Season 4. And whilst the interview was recorded and released before the controversial Season 4 finale, I think some of the things Amell says are very important, sometimes a bit contradictory, and I think in some ways rather controversial. So let's look at his one of the first things he said, and I quote, "I think Twitter largely is overblown. I'm not saying that these people aren't passionate, and I'm not saying that these opinions shouldn't matter, but I do think that their voices tend to be so loud that we think the crowd is much bigger than it actually is. I happen to think that it's much smaller. Most people still enjoy a show in the traditional way, which is to watch it, and not to tweet constantly through it." And what Amelia is touching on here is that over the past two seasons, mainly the back half of season 3 and season 4, Arrow has delved into what some people are describing as a sort of Tumblr-esque show where they focus on relationships over what people seemingly want to see, which is a superhero show, which is what the first two seasons was about. The so-called the super powerless superhero show, and instead the past two seasons have focused on the relationship between Oliver and Felicity, which people have, obviously dubbed Olicity, and a lot of people are arguing that the show is losing its focus. It's focusing on the wrong things, and it's focusing on this relationship, on this relationship that just has ups and downs and doesn't really go anywhere. And that's not only bringing down Oliver as a character, but Felicity as well, who, let's not forget, was one of the fan favorites of the first two seasons. And what Emil says is kind of flippant. The way he says most people still enjoy a show in the traditional way, which is to watch it and not to tweet constantly through it. And I think he's missing the point. People aren't tweeting through it and saying this is crap, this is crap. They're pointing out things that the show has changed for the worse. Me, for instance, I don't tweet through it. I watch it and then I write reviews afterwards, or I talk about it with my friends afterwards. And the prevailing feeling after every episode of this season of Arrow is that they're losing focus. They're losing what made the show good in the first place. They're losing the hand-to-hand combat scenes. They're losing the fact that he's the Green Arrow, he's supposed to shoot arrows, and they're losing the fact that there's always a personal connection to Oliver Queen. And yes, they're trying to hammer home that personal connection with the relationships, but that's not working for the character. Though what worked for the character is family, is the connection he had to his family, the connection he had to people he met on the island, which, the flashbacks are just terrible this season and have been for a couple of seasons now. And the second quote Emil says is, "I think there are sections of the fandom that take to liking a certain character by way of attacking another character. I feel like if you're going on the attack for fictional characters, you're probably not real fans of the show." And this is the quote that got me angry. The fact that he's saying, if you're going on the attack for fictional characters, you're probably not real fans of the show. That is ludicrous. That is bullshit, Stephen Amell, because the whole point of a show like Arrow, with such a big fandom, with a built-in fan base, is that people already have a preconceived notion and idea of these fictional characters, and if the show transgresses from that, that's fine. If a show transgresses from the known version of a character, that's fine, as long as they do something good and valuable with it. For instance, the Black Canary everyone knows is Laurel Lance, but Arrow started off with Sarah Lance of the Black Canary. No one complained, because in a certain way it's an improvement. They were building that character up even more, but then they started doing things, and I've put the blame firmly on the showrunner Mark Guggenheim, where they start writing characters in ways that don't make sense at all. For Felicity, this entire season has been about, and I hate to jump on the Felicity bandwagon, but there is a reason why there's a bandwagon. It's not working at all. The fact that Felicity, all she does is complain about her parents, complain about Oliver, complain about where her life is, complain about what she's doing at Palmertech. All she does is complain and cry, and that's not the Felicity we were, dealt in season 1 and 2. She was supposed to be funny, quippy, awkward, and she was supposed to be that bubbly tech girl, but she's delved it, fallen into a pit of something that we don't quite like, and I think that's what people are missing. But I also don't want to skip over something Emil said that's very important. He also does talk about harassment aimed towards the actresses and actors of the show, and I think that's wrong in any shape and form. We shouldn't be blaming the actors and actresses. They get a script, they act it, and that's fine. We shouldn't be harassing anyone, even if the writers are doing a bad job. It's not our job to go into it and harass them and complain and say, you're doing a crap job, you need to lose your job, or even celebrate people's deaths. on the show. And I think Amell raises a good point that no matter how bad the quality of the show, you shouldn't be harassing people online. That's just not the way to deal with it. But it's okay to complain about the quality of the show, and I think that's what Amell is missing here. We're allowed to complain about the quality of the show. After all, without an audience, the show is non-existent. They need to grab that audience, and I feel like the CW, Mark Guggenheim, Amell, anyone that works on Arrow is underestimating how much people have not enjoyed the last 2 seasons. And yes, there's going to be a big change in season 5, and hopefully that's an improvement. But I don't know if people are going to be sticking around for season 5. I know I will, because at the end of the day, we've had 2 good seasons of Arrow, or 2.5 good seasons. The first half of season 3 wasn't that bad at all. We've had 2.5 good seasons, and we've only had 1.5, seasons worth of bad episodes. So if next season's bad, I think that's where I'll be checking out. And I think the writers need to realize that they've made a mistake these 1.5 seasons. This experiment with characters that people seemingly liked has gone horribly wrong, and they need to get back to what makes the core elements of this show great. They need to get back to Oliver being brutal again. He needs to start killing again, honestly, because that's what made Arrow stick out. He was a hero that wasn't afraid to be the villain every now and again. They need to get back to him being by himself, which I don't know if that will happen if you watch the season 4 finale. And they need to get back to him saving this city. I think an ideal way for the season 4 finale to have ended out would have been if he lost everyone around him, some via death, some via leaving him, and it was just him in a dilapidated Arrow cave looking at himself and thinking, I have failed this city. Can you imagine the impetus that would have provided him to go on and become the Hood again, become the guy that rounded up people, that trod on the poverty stricken, and become the Hood again. And I don't know if that's the way the show's going. I hope that's the way the show's going, but at this moment in time, comments like this don't really give me that much hope for the show moving forward.